Mount Olympus felt newly awakened. The air itself seemed charged, as if the world had been holding its breath since the moment Cronus swallowed his first child. Now that the children had been freed, the breath finally escaped. It spilled across the peaks as a hot wind, curling around the marble cliffs and shaking loose rivulets of stone dust. Zeus stood at the heart of it all, no longer the hidden child of Crete, no longer the whisper in the shadows. He was the one who had defied Cronus and survived. His siblings gathered around him, their faces alight with a kind of fire that only vengeance and destiny can conjure. Hera burned with outrage at the indignity she had suffered inside her father's body. Demeter's eyes were solemn and cold, carrying the stillness of the earth just before an earthquake. Hestia radiated a calm, steady flame that made the air tremble. Poseidon carried the sea in his voice, booming with anger and promise. Hades stood silent, the world dimming for a moment around him, as if shadows leaned in to hear what he would say. They were united not just by gratitude, but by a shared fury, a shared knowledge that the old order had cracked. They were ready to bring it down completely. Olympus was not alone in this oath. From the far edges of the world came ripples of discontent among the Titans. Not all of them had been blind to Cronus' cruelty. Not all of them had forgotten the screams of their brothers when Cronus locked the Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires back in Tartarus. Oceanus, the vast river that encircled the world, felt the shift in tides and stepped away from his brother's rule. Prometheus, ever the thinker, saw the future twisting towards Zeus and recognized that the world was changing. His brother Epimetheus followed, though with far less clarity. These deserters from the Titan ranks came quietly to Olympus. Oceanus did not climb the mountain, but sent whispers of support through the streams and springs that fed its slopes. Prometheus did climb. His stride was long, deliberate, contemplative. When he reached Zeus, his expression told the truth before any words could. He had no desire to serve Cronus. He would follow the one who shaped the future rather than the one who clung to the past. Zeus accepted him with a nod. No grand speech, no formal pledge. The storm gathering around Zeus was all the oath anyone needed. Across the land, on Mount Othrys, the Titans began to gather. Cronus sat on his throne, carved from dark stone. The years had weighed on him. He had once been the young rebel who dared to strike down the sky itself. Now he was ruler, suspicious, heavy with fear of prophecy, and slower than the sharp-edged god he had been. He looked down at his hands, remembering the adamantine sickle that changed his fate, remembering the blood, remembering the curse. The Titans around him felt the aging of their king. Coeus and Creus exchanged glances in the shadows. Iapetus watched Cronus with the careful eye of a strategist, calculating the cost of loyalty. Only one among them burned with fresh, vigorous conviction: Atlas. Atlas towered above every Titan present. His strength was legendary, his determination unshaken. If Cronus was fading, Atlas was only rising. He stood at the heart of Othrys like a pillar of unyielding mountain, his voice rolling like thunder through deep caverns. He took command not by force, but by the sheer inevitability of his presence. He would lead the armies. He would hold the line. If the sky itself fell, Atlas would be the one to catch it. The first clash came with the abruptness of lightning. The sky darkened, the earth quaked, the winds screamed down through the valleys as if warning the creatures below that divinities were moving. Zeus led his siblings down from Olympus, each one shining with their own terrible glory. On the plains between the two mountains, the armies met. Titans against gods, old power against new. The Titans struck first. Hyperion, lord of the heavenly light, called down spears of searing brilliance that split the air. Coeus hurled great swirling storms of raw cosmic wind. Crius, titan of the constellations, summoned starfire that warped the very shape of the sky. These were not simple attacks. They were the weapons of beings who had shaped the world before mortal memory existed. Zeus answered with thunder. The first bolt he threw carved a jagged scar across the horizon. The second struck the earth so hard that mountains trembled. The smell of burning ozone twisted through the battlefield. Hera stood beside him, her presence regal and terrible. She conjured storms that lashed the Titans with sheets of hammering rain. Poseidon thrust his trident into the ground, splitting the battlefield with sudden chasms that roared with seawater. Hades stepped forward, and everything inside the shadow of his form dimmed, Titans faltering as the weight of the underworld brushed against their minds. Still, the battle remained unbroken. Titans did not fall easily. These were the children of Gaia and Uranus, born of the first foundations of the cosmos. When they cast their power, mountains leaned away as if in fear. When they shouted, valleys cracked. Smoke curled through the air, heavy and sulphurous. The earth was scorched black in places, glassy green in others where lightning had fused sand into strange new rock. The combat lasted days, then months, then years. Neither side yielded. The sky became a battlefield of its own. Helios, child of Hyperion, drove his blazing chariot in wild arcs, trying to blind the young Olympians. Selene swept the moon into strange eclipses to confuse their armies. Eos thrung rosy dawn light like a spear of purifying brilliance. Yet Zeus endured. His lightning never dimmed, as if the storm inside him only grew stronger with every clash. Even so, the war ground into stalemate. The Titans were too many, too ancient, too powerful. The Olympians were young but fierce. With Prometheus offering counsel and Oceanus offering quiet aid, they held their ground. Neither side advanced, neither side could claim victory. The world cried out beneath them. Oceans boiled, volcanoes split open, forests burned and regrew in strange accelerated cycles. Every creature on earth hid from the blazing skies, trembling at the sheer force of divine rage. Gaia watched this devastation with sorrow. She had seen her children fight before, but never on this scale. She felt the earth tremble beneath her, felt the fractures creeping through mountains and oceans alike. She knew that the balance of creation was tipping toward ruin. So she whispered prophecy. The whisper rose from the deep places of the world, curling upward like ancient incense. It brushed against Zeus while he stood on the battlefield, lightning crackling along his arms. It seeped into Poseidon's dreams, stirred the shadows around Hades, and drifted through the olive groves where Hera stood planning their next assault. Zeus was the one who understood it first. The prophecy spoke clearly, not in riddles this time, but in firm directive. Victory would come only if he freed the ones Cronus had imprisoned. The Cyclopes, the Hecatoncheires, the ones locked in Tartarus, the ones the Titans feared so deeply that Cronus had sealed them away at the bottom of the world. Zeus felt the truth of it strike him harder than any Titan's blow. He knew this was the turning point. He knew the cost. He knew the danger. He also knew there was no other path. And so, while the armies clashed under a burning sky, Zeus disappeared from the battlefield. He did not announce his departure. He did not warn his siblings. One moment he was there, crackling with stormlight. The next he was gone, swallowed by a flash of white lightning that streaked toward the horizon. He was going to Tartarus, the deepest pit in existence, the womb of monsters, the grave where Cronus buried everything he feared. It welcomed no visitor, and Zeus went anyway. Zeus traveled toward Tartarus in a streak of merciless white fire. The sky parted around him, the clouds shredded by his passage, the wind screaming behind him like wounded spirits. He flew past the last edges of the world where sunlight thinned, past the barren wastes where no mortal creature could survive, and down into the region where the earth no longer felt like earth at all. The soil darkened, the air thickened, the rocks became jagged as if forged by a smith who hated every shape he made. The entrance to Tartarus loomed ahead. It was not a gate, not a doorway, but a vast wound in the world. The ground dropped away into a chasm so deep that even Zeus, who had seen the curve of the heavens, could not see the bottom. A faint red glow pulsed from within it. The light moved with a slow, rhythmic beat, like the heartbeat of something colossal and sleeping. Zeus set foot at the edge, the heat rising from the abyss pushed against him, as if the pit itself were trying to drive him back. He stepped forward anyway. Stone cracked beneath him and sank. The chasm inhaled, drawing him down, and the world around him blurred into a whirl of shadows and sulfur. The descent felt endless. The air grew impossibly heavy. The light dimmed until it became nothing but a faint smear of red beneath his feet. Then even that vanished. Zeus dropped deeper still, surrounded by absolute blackness, until at last a narrow platform of stone emerged in the void. Tartarus, the prison of gods, the bottom of creation, the place even nightmares feared to tread. Zeus had only taken a few steps when he heard the sound. It came first as a slither, then as a scrape, then as a grinding, bone-snapping crunch that echoed through the abyss. A shape moved in the red darkness. Something massive, something wrong. Campe, guardian of Tartarus, jailor of the ancient monsters, a creature so vicious that even Cronus had felt a flicker of fear when he placed her there. Her form was a fusion of horrors. Her upper body resembled a winged woman, but her skin was scaled and gleaming like molten bronze. Her lower body was a churning mass of serpents, each one long enough to encircle a giant. Her arms ended in talons that dragged sparks from the stone. Her mouth was a row of jagged teeth, no two alike. When she saw Zeus, she smiled. Her voice slithered across the rocks. It sounded like shredded silk soaked in venom. It was not a greeting, it was a promise. Zeus did not answer with words. Power gathered in his palm, swelling until it illuminated the entire region with an amber glow. Campe shrieked and lunged forward. The serpents beneath her writhed and snapped, fangs dripping venom that hissed when it touched the stone. Zeus hurled the raw energy that gathered in his palm. The explosion tore a canyon through the darkness. Campe staggered, but did not fall. She unfurled her wings and rose high above Zeus, her talons poised to strike. She dove toward him with impossible speed. Her claws smashed into the ground, sending rocks flying like shrapnel. Serpents struck at him from every direction. Zeus moved like a storm given flesh. He dodged the first strike, shattered 2 serpents with a crackling blast, and leapt onto a jutting spire of rock. Campe shrieked again, this time summoning a ring of flaming chains. They snapped toward Zeus, trying to bind him, tighten around him, smother him. He broke them with a single burst of thunderous force. Campe rushed him again. Her jaws gaped wide, ready to swallow him whole. Zeus met her charge head-on. He thrust his hands forward and unleashed power so intense it scorched the air itself into drifting glass. The attack struck Campe square in the chest.
Her scream ripped through Tartarus. Her wings collapsed. The serpents writhed wildly. She toppled backward into the chasm, crashing through a forest of sharp stone. The echo of her fall carried on for what felt like hours. When silence finally returned, Zeus stepped forward. His power had burned through her armor of scales and shattered the living genes she wore as weapons. Beneath the rubble of fallen stone, her twisted form lay motionless. The guardian of Tartarus was dead. The cavern trembled. The chains that bound the Hecatoncheires clattered. The seals that trapped the Cyclops flickered like dying embers. Cronus had locked them away using power stolen from the fabric of creation itself. But now that Campe was gone, the bindings grew weak. They strained, they cracked, they begged for release. Zeus found the keys around her shattered waist. They were forged of black metal, heavier than mountains, colder than death. He lifted them and felt the lock on reality itself shifting. He approached the first cell. The door was carved into the stone as if the world had folded around a shape too monstrous to be contained properly. He placed the key into the lock. The moment he turned it, the entire abyss shook. The air thickened with pent-up power. The door opened.